Hi everybody, welcome. I'm Donna from Purple Pinky Promises. Thanks for stopping by. We have a vintage Valentine's Day card to share with you today, and I have to admit, I don't know that I've made anything like this with reds and grays. So I have decided to give a good whirl on our most recent editions of the Distress Inks. I'm bringing together the plaid color, the lumberjack plaid, and lost shadow. So I'm just inking up the edges here on my card front with regular distress ink, and it doesn't look perfect when I ink it up, but there's no worries. It all just kind of ends up blending out just fine in the end. We have layers that go over it, so it works out just fine. I left my waffle flower mat at the store, and I didn't have anything here, so I went with grid paper. But anyway, so I just have to tell you, this ink is super amazing. It starts out a little dark, but then it just kind of starts to slowly fade into this silvery, powdery, beautiful color. I can't even begin to describe it. So here I am right now, and I am taking this Stampers Anonymous Ladies and Gentlemen stamp set from Tim Holtz, and I am stamping up the background in Lost Shadow, and I'm only using regular distress inks today with this project. And I am taking these stamps, and I am creating my own background with this one stamp set. And this is one of my favorite things to do, is just, instead of taking paper, create my own background. So you watch this process happen, and you'll see it begins to, that lost shadow will lighten up as the video goes on. So I did add one more color in all of this. I did add black soot, regular distress ink, and I'm taking these floral pieces from the same set, the Ladies and Gentlemen stamp set, and I just decided I wanted to bring them to the forefront just a little bit more than the words in our background. And there are two floral pieces that come with this set, and I decided to stamp with that. Okay, so our next thing we have here, these are some Circle Dual stencils from Dare to Be Artsy. I'm just taking my VersaMark ink, and I'm taking it directly to the stencil and putting it on the paper through the stencil. And I am actually using the new embossing glazes, Lumberjack Plaid and Lost Shadow, for this background. I just thought that these circles would add some interest. And you end up not really seeing the Lost Shadow one because I layer it up so much, but you do end up seeing the Lumberjack Plaid peeking out from the top. You can see it out towards the left, the bottom left, a little bit in the card eventually, but this Lumberjack Plaid is really the thing that pops the most. Okay, so now here we are at this piece of paper. I actually edited this out, the process distressing this out, because I decided I didn't want it, but then I came back to it, and I stamped this face image just perfectly in that one little spot that was distressed, in that little, I guess you would call it the rounded spot. I stamped her right above it, and I just decided that I was going to distress her with my scissors and some black soot, and just kind of let that flow over that one little spot. And it worked out really nice, actually. I did fussy cut her out as well. And as I looked at it, I decided, you know what? This would kind of be neat with some of that Lumberjack Plaid. So I decided to try just the edges, but then I eventually decided that I really, really thought, how about if we just blend in a light amount right there in those dark areas? And I really liked it. I went with it. I decided if I didn't like it, I could stamp it again, distress it again, but I did end up liking it, so I went with it. decided not to go too heavy, but really light. And it just gave it the right amount of color I was looking for. I thought about this a little bit, and I thought, you know what I could have done? I could have actually taken my VersaMark ink and stamped it over this and put that lumberjack, or not the lumberjack, but the lost shadow over it. That would have probably been really interesting. Maybe you should experiment with that. Leave me a comment if you do. Try this project and you do that. Tell me what you think. Okay, now we're into an ephemera pack. I love ephemera. So this little ephemera pack is, these are the Idea-Ology layers. These are the die cuts. Lots and lots of goodies in that pack. I've taken this bottle and stamped it. I have used the, this is from Just the Ticket stamp set. And that stamps from Just the Ticket stamp set. And this is a Concord 9th stamp set. And I'll tell you what, I thought, that's perfect. It fits right in that bottle. So what I'm doing now is I'm taking the VersaMark, and I am using one of my blending tools and putting VersaMark ink in there and putting some more embossing glaze in there. This time I'm using the Lumberjack Plaid. And just taking my fingernails basically and taking off the ink where I don't want, or taking off the embossing glaze where I don't want it. And then I'm going to take a heat tool to it. And I do this twice actually. I decided that bottom left area I didn't want to leave it blank. I wanted actually, or I didn't want to leave it too splotchy. I did want to fill it in with just a little bit more, so I'd go back over it again with this Lumberjack Plaid embossing glaze. Picking it up, scratching it off, and heating it up. I really had fun putting these two colors together. They just worked, well, actually more than just two colors. I did use the black soot as well. So I play around with this and think, you know, that's not enough. I need some more ephemera. So here we are with a butterfly. And then I decided that butterfly needs some embossing glaze. And what do you know? I ink it up with that VersaMark ink, and I throw some more of that Lumberjack Plaid, but I do a very light coating. I didn't want it heavy. I wanted it very light because my bottle had quite a bit of a heavy coating of it. So I just wanted it to be light. So I'm taking my fingers here and I'm taking off the VersaMark ink, but then I end up putting more where I took it off anyway. So I'm just very lightly sprinkling it to kind of control it where I want it to go. And I really like how that turned out. This is a different type of project for me. It's very mixed media, and it's actually kind of mixed media and vintage both. Just working with these three colors that's the part that was very different for me. Okay, so now I'm taking another piece from the same ephemera pack, and I have put some VersaMark ink on it. And I decided I want some lost shadow. I want to see what that does. And honestly, it's a very, very, very subtle glazed look. So anything you put this on is going to be very, very subtle. I wiped it off here and there so that I could see if I could tell a difference between where it was embossed and where it wasn't. You could just barely tell the difference. So it was a very interesting experience using this embossing glaze. So you can see it go into work, and you'll see here in a minute, I'm trying to show you, that's very subtle. Just very, very, very subtle. It's really cool. It's just one shade, I would say just a slight shade darker than a clear embossing powder. Very pretty. Gives it this really frosty glow. I love it. So now I am ready to work with all my parts and pieces here and start layering up. I start the layering process. I get this butterfly down, I get that foliage piece down, and I stop. And I want more. And you'll see what I did here. Using this same stamp set that the background pieces come from and she comes from, there's a set of numbers in that set. And I decided I wanted to add some numbers. And what better numbers for your Valentine's Day card than 02 and 14? So that's exactly what I decided to do. But before that, I wanted to add some more black soot to this. I felt like the red might be just a little too heavy, and I wanted just a really subtle red around the edges. I really liked how soft the Lost shadow was, and I just felt like it just needed a little bit more dramatic look around the edge. So I put her on one layer of one layer of double-sided adhesive foam tape, and I put the bottle on 2 layers so that we can have some layered looks to this. And now I'm inking up our numbers, stamping it, and I'm going to fussy cut those pieces out. I'm going to ink those edges of each of those numbers up in the Lost Shadow Distress ink. And I just glue those straight down to the front of the card. So here I am inking it up. And then I'm going to put it down. And now it's complete. No, it's not. We have to put some ribbon on here. This red ribbon is Hug Snug Ribbon. And I did not add any adhesive to the neck of that bottle, so I thought, what a perfect place to tie a bow. So I did, tied that bow on there, and now we're ready to put it on our card front. And here's a look one more time at this card. I loved how it turned out. It was a lot of fun to experiment with something different for once. And I certainly appreciate you stopping by and joining me for this project. I hope you have a blessed rest of your day and week. And happy Valentine's Day. Bye-bye.